What's going on, guys? Tony here with another episode of the Comic Zone. This time I want to talk about the Fantastic Four. The movie's coming out, so I figured let me just do a video where I talk about what we can expect to see in the film. Before we start, obviously some reviews are out and they're not looking too favorably. I'll discuss that at the end of the video just really quickly because there's only been 5 reviews that are out, so we'll talk about that later. One of the things I want to talk about first is there's a lot of people, they're upset that this movie is deviating so much from the source material. They're looking at this like, wait, what's going on? Like, why aren't they going to space? What's with this alternate dimension stuff? What is this? What's going on? People who haven't read the Ultimate comics, I understand why they're mad, because obviously it's a completely different thing going on here. But the thing that people need to understand is the movie people are not just making stuff up. They're actually basing this off a book. For me personally, I was very hesitant about this movie until I saw that first trailer and I was like, oh wait, this is Ultimate Fantastic Four. Okay, I could roll with this, because that was a great modern take on Fantastic Four. Now obviously, I was just about to say, obviously you can't have the Fantastic Four going off into space and getting their powers. They did that in the movies with Jessica Alba and Michael Chiklis, and we all saw how that came out. Yeah, it was true to the source material mostly, but yeah. Anyway, let's leave those behind. So yes, this story is based on the Ultimate Fantastic Four run, and I want to quickly break down what happens in that story, because judging from what I see in the trailers, I see a lot of that happening here. So basically, they get their powers from a teleportation accident. It's based in science, but it's very like crazy super science, but it's still based in the realm of reality. So Reed Richards invents a teleporter to the N zone, which is obviously a play on the negative zone, and Victor Van Dam, as he's called in the books, not Victor Von Doom, Victor Van Dam, he actually messes around with some of the calculations that Reed had to make at the last minute, and this caused an error to happen with the teleportation device. Basically, and this is the part where it gets a little weird, imagine that every person from every reality has a specific version of them that exists, and within the multitude of the multiverse, there are many versions of a person or an object. They could be in different states. This is how the book says it. So the teleportation device is supposed to store the state that you entered into it. What happens is when they try to come back out of it, since it was malfunctioning, it brings them back in a randomized state from another version of themselves. So this is why Reed Richards comes back elastic. He's coming back, or at least his body is, as a version of himself from another alternate dimension. Same thing with Johnny Storm, with Susan Storm, with Ben Grimm, and Victor Van Dam. They all come back in other versions of themselves. It's hard to explain it, but it actually makes more scientific sense that, oh yeah, we got bathed by random cosmic rays. So the movie seems to be taking cues from that. I think they're probably gonna simplify it. I think I read somewhere that they get hit by some kind of ultra dimensional radiation or something. They're probably gonna simplify it because it's a very hard concept to explain to people. The other thing that this movie seems to be doing is it's keeping the tone of the Ultimate Fantastic Four books. This is another point of contention where people, they're like, why is this movie so dark? Because the Ultimate Fantastic Four books are dark. This is based off the Ultimate Fantastic Four. It necessarily needs to be dark in tone. There are some lighthearted moments, but the tone is decidedly pretty serious. In the original books, for example, Ben Grimm, he was very upset that he became a monster. That's actually what made him an interesting quote-unquote superhero. He was the first superhero and hated being a superhero. But yeah, in the original books, he always felt very upset, very sad, very depressed over the fact that he's this monster now. In the Ultimate books, he actually goes a step further. He tries to commit suicide, but he can't because he's a freaking giant rock monster, which actually makes him even more depressed because he can't even kill himself. The rest of the team, they're okay with their powers because they still look like regular people. They don't look like a bunch of monsters. Johnny Storm obviously really loves his power. They explain all their powers in more scientific terms. They just go really deep into it. Like I know with Reed Richards, they said that you could kind of consider that his entire body is made out of one giant cell membrane, and he just has like a sac or something that digests food. But yeah, they go go really into detail, and I'm expecting the movie to do the same thing. They're gonna break down how they're actually able to live with these sort of powers, but probably in a more simplified way. So you could expect all that. The first story arc had them facing off against the Mole Man. You're not gonna see that the main villain's gonna be Doctor Doom, but I'm already hearing that they don't go too deep into his origin, and I'm talking about his origin before he met Reed Richards. All the stuff with Latveria and the Gypsies and magic, they're not gonna go into that stuff. They're just gonna focus on his origin as far as it pertains to the rest of the team. Even though he's gonna be the main villain, they're not really going to go into his backstory. I just don't see that happening. So yeah, from what I'm seeing, this movie is staying pretty close to that end. Now, I want to wrap this up by briefly talking about the reviews that are coming out. 5 reviews have been released. I think Variety, Hollywood Reporter, trade publications, basically. Not exactly the typical publications that are geek friendly. They're not exactly panning the movie, but they just said it could have been a lot better. I know they all universally like the cast. They like them, but they felt that the story didn't have any heart to it. That's what it seems like. Like they spent too much time focusing on explaining things rather than showing it to you. And they also didn't like the special effects, which is a little odd because from what I've seen of the trailers, the special effects look really good. And again, they also didn't like the darker tone, which you could dismiss off the bat because come on, this is based off the Ultimate Fantastic Four here. You got to give them some slack there. But then again, these people, they're not geeks, so they're not going to understand it the way we are. I'm hoping that this movie is good because the last thing we need is another bad Fantastic Four movie. Actually, the last thing we need is a bad superhero movie in general. We've had a really good run these last few years, and it would be really bad if something were to derail that. But from what I'm reading, even though they weren't exactly happy with the movie, they didn't say it was a disaster either. So hopefully that's just because they're not into superhero movies or fans of comic books. So we shall see. So that's it. I just wanted to give you guys a quick little rundown of what to expect from this movie and to explain why it appears to be so different from the source material. It's very different from the 616 universe, obviously, because it's based on the Ultimate. Obviously, some little differences. Like I said, they're probably going to have a simplified version of the origin, but for the most part, it seems to be Ultimate Fantastic Four. And if that's the case, it should make for a hell of a great movie. All right, guys. So once again, Tony with the Comic Zone. I will see you next time. Later.